and welcome to another exciting episode of What to Think with me, Dylan Tweeney.
And I am Julie Odell.
Yes, you are. And we have a guest this week who is Kevin Marks, who's, he's done all kinds of things. Microformats,
Open web standards, podcasting.
He's an early.
And on top of all that, he's smart and nice and funny. Like, he's the guy you want at your cocktail party.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to him. First, let's hit some of the headlines of the week. You know, I think since we last did this podcast, the biggest news is probably the Amazon Fire Phone.
Yeah, I'm so down on that. I'm down on it.
Why are you down on the Fire Phone, Jolie?
Well, it's so cloudy. It's putting all your crap up in the cloud, and I think it's giving you less control of how your stuff gets used. Your stuff is sometimes getting used for image recognition. You don't have as much control, I think, as you should have. Well, you don't have a lot of privacy there.
Okay, let's be clear about this. So, as it turns out, the Fire Phone has this feature called Firefly, which does image recognition. You can point the camera at things, you press the Firefly button, and it will figure out that you're looking at, say, a box of Cheerios. And it can tell you what the nutritional information is.
Because you can't look at the side of the box because You're an idiot.
Right. But this is the scary thing to retailers anyway. It will tell you what it would cost to buy that on Amazon. And then it will presumably offer to ship it to you. So instead,
because you're an idiot who can't go to the grocery store.
Well, hey, free shipping if it's $1 cheaper.
The idiot phone from Amazon.
So here's the thing. There's some concern about whether taking all those pictures, whether Amazon is going to store those pictures and use them to target things to you. And Amazon says not.
Yep, that's what they're doing with Amazon Web Services, not storing stuff. I buy that.
They do store your pictures, but they say they're storing all the pictures you take in a private part of the Amazon cloud that only you have access to, and they're not using that to target or market or do image recognition or any of that.
Yep, sign me up. I buy that 100% all the way.
You sound so skeptical.
Oh, yeah, sure.
How much do you trust Amazon? Jolie, that sounds like you.
-3.
Okay. Google.
Okay. -5.
Apple?
-20.
Microsoft?
2.
2?
I like Bill Gates.
Okay, that's what... Bill Gates has nothing to do with Microsoft anymore.
Well, that foundation's pretty great, and he was involved earlier, so...
All right, so you're
vote of confidence for Microsoft.
You're using a Windows phone because you hate malaria, and he's getting rid of malaria. Good. That's a good enough reason. Okay. Speaking of Microsoft...
Let's speak of Microsoft.
Segue. I did not plan this. Microsoft really, really, really wants you to use its new Surface Pro 3.
You know, we gave that thing such a great review.
It's a cool device.
Our reviewer said, like, this is the Surface that you've been waiting for. This is the one they should have made in the first place. Everyone would be delighted to have such a tablet in their life. So then why is Microsoft subsidizing it?
Well, because you have to persuade people a little bit to buy a new device like this.
That's called advertising, not subsidizing.
In this case, it's called subsidy because if you have a MacBook Air and you take it to a Microsoft store, they will give you $650 towards the purchase of a Surface Pro 3.
Do you leave your Air with them?
Yes, unfortunately.
So they're just sort of buying your computer?
For $650, yeah. Which you could probably get a better deal if your MacBook Air is in good shape.
So you're turning in your Air for an idiot box.
It's not that good of a deal when you actually look at the details.
Well, it depends on what you've spilled on your Air. Hot sauce, water.
They might not give you $650 for a non-functional MacBook Air. I will say this, though. The Surface Pro 2 I've used quite a bit because my wife bought one. It's a great computer. It's really good. With some limitations, it's quite good. So I think, if you're willing to use Windows and you want a kick-ass tablet and you're willing to spend, $850 and up, it's a pretty good deal.
Well, I think you said something interesting there. You called it a computer.
It is a computer.
Well, see, that's the interesting part to me. I don't care for tablets. I have no use for them. I don't play games, Dylan. So I'm not much of a tablet person.
That's why you're so boring.
But I love my Windows 8.1 computer, my laptop computer.
So
and they're saying that this is it's equivalent.
It's a very powerful computer. And actually, let me tell you the way my wife uses it. Most of the time when she's doing work, it is plugged into a gigantic monitor and an external keyboard and a mouse. So it's just like a regular desktop computer. But in the morning when she's drinking her coffee, she's reading news on it by flipping on the touchscreen.
Well, she better be careful. She'll end up turning that thing in for a functional
Exactly.
air thing.
Because she will have spilled coffee on it and it will no longer be working.
Do the subsidies go both ways, do you think? Do you think Apple would ever pay any money for it? No. They'd look at you and say, you dumb so-and-so. Welcome back. Okay. Let's move on.
Let's talk about the cloud. Specifically, one of the leading cloud vendors, Rackspace.
Would we call them leading?
Well, it's hard to say now because they're facing a lot of really stiff competition.
And I've liked Rackspace
Google.
so much. Over the years, Rackspace was just a cool company that I loved to talk to and write about.
And they hired Robert Scoble, and he blogs for them. He's cool.
Scoble.
Yeah,
Can I pretend he's my nemesis? We're actually friends. That's
He's like the nicest guy in tech.
I think I could get more play out of him being my nemesis, though.
Here's the problem.
Moving
Rackspace, I think Rackspace is having a hard time competing because they offer a premium, expensive service. And they're competing against the likes of Amazon Web Services, which is like pennies.
And this isn't a scenario where something is more exclusive. And they're not like the Prada of web services.
Rackspace?
Right.
I mean, is there a Prada of web? I don't think there is.
There's a Walmart of web services, but there's no Prada.
Absolutely.
Because no one wants a Prada.
I don't know.
It doesn't make you feel special and exclusive.
You don't want fancy, well-designed racks to put your servers in. You don't want that Swiss or that French je ne sais quoi.
Oh.
Your server design.
Just keep the story moving, Dylan.
Nobody
you just
cares.
got back from Paris, and now you think you can speak in French with your little croissant and your little je ne sais quoi.
Okay, so Rackspace is losing executives.
Which
quite
ones?
a few in the last few months. Right here, I'll read a list. Cloud evangelist Scott Sanchez and Nikki Acosta. They moved to MetaCloud. Miguel Millen, who led up their Latin American sales team, took a job at SoftLayer. Sales engineering director Eric Thiel. Marketing executive Brian Riosti. So these are not exactly top-level executives, but they've lost quite a few in the past few months.
And it's not a huge company.
No. So
Now,
the word is...
Now, I know what the word is because one of my friends who is closely connected to this whole situation, not saying who it is, has indicated that WordPress Engine, a hot startup, is actually moving to San Antonio to try to poach away some Rackspace employees.
Interesting. It's true.
Is it not?
Interesting.
And isn't San Antonio is where they have their headquarters, where Rackspace is headquartered. And WP Engine has its roots in Austin. So it's not very much of a move.
It's like a, Texas takedown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Anyway, watch Rackspace. They say that things are just fine. We do know that they're looking for an acquirer. And Jordan Novett, the reporter who covers them for VentureBeat, has talked recently to several potential acquirers. The most recent one being IBM's SoftLayer division. And they were like, no, we're not buying that.
So it's down to WordPress Engine, WP Engine, and Rackspace. The Texas takedown. Hope you like brisket. I've been waiting all day to say hope you like brisket. Awesome. Okay. So.
Well, let's just really quickly, before we move on to Kevin, give a little quick, thanks to our sponsors.
Yeah, let's give them a shout out. I do want to say thank you to our host and sponsor, New Relic. This is a software analytics company that makes sense of billions of metrics across millions of web and mobile apps. New Relic helps the people who build modern software understand the stories their data is trying to tell them. When software breaks, everyone loses. New Relic helps improve software performance and reliability, delivering a better experience for users and more success for your business. New Relic supports PHP, Python, Ruby, Java, .NET, Node, iOS, and Android apps. And with that, shall we bring in Kevin Marks?
Let's do.
Thank you, Kevin, for being on the program.
I'm very happy to be here.
So for our ignorant audience, can you please tell them what you do and who you are and why they should care?
I never know where people should care.
Well, I already explained because you're fabulous as a cocktail party guest. You're the guy everybody wants at the cocktail party because you're smart, you're charming, and you're amusing.
Well, that's very nice of you to say so. What I do web standardsy stuff. I've done various bits and pieces of that over time, microformats. The stuff I'm interested in at the moment is indie web, which is the idea that you should own your own data and own your own domain and have your own website rather than putting it on someone else's servers. put it on their servers, but don't put it on their service, because then they own your data and they can decide what gets shown to people and what isn't.
I love this idea.
What a stunning coincidence.
Just talking about this
God.
when we were discussing the Amazon Fire Phone.
You're on point, sir.
Jolly good.
Yes.
Can I ask you something about that? Because I have a website, and I have often felt like I've gone through phases where, I want to publish things on my website so that I at least own them. I've taken the time to write something and think about it and write out a 500-word little essay or observation or some photos of my family or whatever. So I'll put it on my website instead of Facebook. The problem is everybody that I want to communicate with is on Facebook.
Right.
So, and then the comment, I can cross-post it to Facebook, but then the comments are all on Facebook. And so the relationship and the discussion and the relationships that I have with my friends are all still happening on Facebook, even though what I wrote is on my own site.
Well, that's one of the challenges of this stuff. So that was, in some ways, we're harking back to 10 years ago when we were all blogging and doing our own sites and connecting to that way.
GeoCities and LiveJournal. It was a good time.
LiveJournal invented most of this stuff. LiveJournal is still very cool.
Mm-hmm.
What we suggest now is what we call POSSE, because we like acronyms, because we're nerds, which stands for Publish on Own Site, Share Elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you post it on your own site, and then you share it out on Facebook with a link to your site.
Yes.
Rather than posting it straight to a blog on their site.
Yes. So I'm down with the posse. The posse is what I'm doing.
With the second O, wouldn't it be more like...
No. Don't go there. But
this is a family show. This is a family show.
Carefully constructed acronyms.
Yeah. So then, what do you do about that discussion part?
One of the things we've been working on is a protocol called web mention, with the idea that if I mention your site, I can tell you that I've done that, and then you can inspect my site and insert the comment as you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
So we built that as a sort of peer-to-peer protocol for doing cross-site commentary and discussion.
And do you think Facebook and Twitter and the like will be happy to support that?
I think they will not notice, but we have a bridge tool. There's a bridge tool that will take your web mentions and send them when you send them out to Facebook and Twitter, and then bring the comments back to your site, so you can see them on your own site, so you can collate the comments together. So this is called Bridgy, BRID.GY is the domain, and it's a tool set up by one of the indie web people.
BRID.GY. All right. I'm totally going there.
Yeah.
See, this seems like a much more person-friendly solution than mine, which is be forever alone, share nothing, care for no one.
We miss your website, Julie. You had a lovely website full of posts. And
Thank you.
People miss you online, and you change your profile photo to a
Well, I don't miss them. What did I ever get? Did any of them write me a check? No.
So
that's a separate problem. We can work on that next.
People writing Jolie checks? Hey. Okay, we'll do that one next time.
So I get this intuitively, but why? For me, it's just because I'm a control freak. I want to control things. But what is it in it for the ordinary person?
What is that sense of control? I mean, a lot of people have been burnt by putting their stuff into some startup, which then disappears, or suddenly decides that it's pivoting into something else, and your content doesn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a website that is full of like, a wonderful thing just happened. We got bought by Yahoo, and we're deleting all your data.
Yes.
There's a pattern now that's common enough that people can be wary of it. And the bigger sites are getting better at letting you export them in some form. But you can get all your tweets out of Twitter and your notes out of Facebook and out of Google Plus as HTML, and then you can post those on your own site. That's one method of doing this. But then, as you say, you're disconnected from it. So the challenge is to connect these back in and make the stuff work. So that's what we're up to with this with IndieWeb. That's the idea behind it.
I would like to think the real challenge is rediscovering personal relationships in ways that don't have to do with computers. Let's keep the computers for computing. Oh, that's going to be my slogan. Computers for computing.
You are such a Luddite.
No, I think you should use computers for a lot of things.
Because there are a lot of wonderful things that computers can do besides computing. Connecting people, for instance.
The wonderful thing about computers is computers are wonderful things. Hey? No, but I think
bouncy.
When we realize we rely too much on these services to maintain our relationships to the point that it's unthinkable that you wouldn't use them, and you have to find workarounds and create other technologies, why not just call someone on the phone or send them a holiday newsletter with pictures of your horrible children?
There you go.
There you go.
Well, you could, if you call someone on the phone these days, they don't answer. you have to text them first or let them know you're going to.
Or send naughty pictures.
I haven't tried that. I'm sure it worked better for you than for me.
It goes over very well. Not for me. I haven't tried it, but for others I know. Evan Spiegel says it's always worked for him.
Exactly, yes. But the other thing is that people you build something that becomes a communication platform, and then it gets overloaded, and you back away from it, and you retreat into the next one. So we now have like 15 of these things each. It's like I've got 15 ways of contacting anyone, and I have no idea which one they're going to answer. And that's one of the challenges of this. Because partly we started out with the sort of, I'm old enough to when email was actually exciting, because when an email came in, that meant someone was interested in me. I was one of the interesting people, because only the interesting people had email. And then gradually everyone gets email, and those filters don't work. And it's like, then you find something else nerdier or more personal or more suitable to whatever you're interested in.
ICQ and chat rooms and all that stuff. And
that's why all my best friends are on Yo right now.
Oh, shut up. No, we're not talking about that app.
Okay,
not on this show.
Let's talk about
what I talk about.
You cannot.
The idea
no
an app that is key that they don't actually understand what they do.
Oh,
so the idea. So one of the key things about communication, and this goes back to what you were saying about connecting with people, is that a lot of communication doesn't actually have any content. You're basically communicating phatically is the word. Just to say, I'm still here, you still there, you nod.
It's the poke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the poke, or it's the walking by someone's desk. Oh, hey, girl. Like, it doesn't mean much.
A lot of the the likes and the stars and things like that are just little yes, I'm here.
Yes.
And they don't always work right. It's like someone's telling you some bad story about what happened to them, and you click like. It's like, no, I don't actually like that. But what I'm saying is,
well, then you have to leave a substantive comment.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
And that's so much work.
But the point about Yo is that it has that, insofar as it's doing anything, it is doing that little phatic nod of the head to people, I'm still here. It's framed in I haven't installed it, so I don't know what it looks like, but I get the idea, and the idea is weak and one-dimensional. And the other thing that we've seen is the explosion of use of emoji is the same thing. I'm sending you a little thing, it isn't a word, it's a wordless thing that
it's a poop with a smile and eyeballs.
Or a flower.
Or 2 clinking beers, that's my favorite one.
I love the poop one.
I like the beers.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something. I've been playing around with Yo, and actually, not to go too far down this path, but one of the things that they did get very right is the interface is incredibly friendly and non-threatening. So it's really just like, go ahead, tap on things, don't worry about it, nothing bad will happen. Tap here, tap there. And it's just all brightly colored and big letters.
It's like a child's app.
It is a little
like
bit.
For a 2-year-old who cannot yet read.
or say any words other than Yo. Yeah, it's true.
We're dumbing down our whole...
We probably are.
Why are we even talking about this? In our office, dear listeners, in the VentureBeat office, our lead engineer, Ryan, has put out a hit on anybody mentioning that app. And he has a fully stocked Nerf arsenal. And he got our cloud reporter smack in the back of the head this morning.
He deserved it too. Let's talk about Google I.O. You're speaking at Google I.O., is that right?
I'm speaking at the Ignite at Google I.O. This is the shortest possible speech you can give and still say you're speaking. So I'm doing a 5-minute talk.
Oh, okay.
Which is, from, the principle of Ignite?
Yeah, it's like 20 slides
I love
in 5
Ignite.
minutes, right?
20 slides in 5 minutes, auto-advance 15 seconds. So
I've done this before.
Closest towards you, yeah. So Google I.O. has always had one. In fact, I suggested they had one when I was at Google. We did the first Google I.O., so we have to have an Ignite and it'll be great. And so maybe I'm grandfathered in or something. So I'm doing a talk at that tomorrow at sometime after 4.
What's your talk?
My talk is Procrustes and data. And
Procrustes, the guy who was too big for his bed, so they cut him to fit.
That's it. Well, he was originally the guy who was doing the cutting. So Procrustes was a guy on the road between Athens and Eleusis in Greece, which is sort of the holy place. And he would invite people into his hotel and then tie them to the bed and say, well, your legs are too long, I'll cut your feet off. Oh, you're not long enough, I'll stretch you out. Because he was basically torturing them so that he could get
And this is why you want Kevin Marks at your cocktail party. Please continue, sir.
You're right, because Theseus did end up getting him in the same way.
In his own bed.
Shortening him in his its own bed. Yes.
Okay.
So that's you got that piece right. But the point is, that this is like this wonderful, 3,000-year-old metaphor for trying to force things into the wrong space.
I have to thank my sophomore high school English teacher, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, blessed be her name, for...
Wait, is she a deity or is she gone?
I think she passed
Well,
away.
may she
For
rest
teaching me
in
about
peace.
Procrustes. Okay, I'm not Catholic. You got the right thing.
You can't... What was that thing you said? We're gonna...
I don't know the right words.
I'm taking you to church on Sunday, sir. You messed up. All right.
Okay. So continue.
So the point is that this is like this handy metaphor from 2,000 years ago about how we use technology all the time. We end up trying to force the world into these little beds that aren't quite the right size. And if your name is too long or doesn't quite fit, we'll end up truncating it or insisting
Or if it has
longer.
an apostrophe in it, you just can't use that character.
Yes. Right, if it has a semicolon, then you're really in trouble. But there's, there's a challenge there, which is trying to fit the data, the real world into the data. So what you're saying about computers being good at computing and less good at representing the world. And every time we do one of those representations, we're losing something. And the difficulty when you're a programmer is you are so close to the data of the machine, you don't necessarily see that you're losing bits of the world in there. And so I've got a theme following on from that, going through various bits and pieces. I'm trying to do the whole talk now, especially I haven't quite finished it yet. The point is that we've been through lots of generations of this. So it starts out with fixed size arrays of strings and fixed size numbers. But then as we get better at representing data, we still end up making things that are constrained. And often, even if a very general data structure, we'll add rules on the top and we say, no, you can't have a name that looks like that. And put rules like that on top of things. Or we'll have a representation problem, so you end up where a volcano has a fax number. Because you start out with places, and places have addresses and fax numbers and phone numbers. And a volcano is a kind of place. So volcanoes have fax numbers. And you look at this and you go, maybe my modelling of the world isn't quite right here. So there's problems like that with modelling and thinking about it. And then the bigger problem is, as we're increasingly relying on the computers to do everything all the time, we are sort of transforming into those models and thinking in those models rather than thinking in the world. And the big danger is that we are very prone to storytelling explanations. Everything we perceive in the world, we re-narrate to ourselves, and then we re-narrate that to others. And so if you've got a good story, then it can last thousands of years, like the story of Procrustes. It's like, that's a good story. He cut people's feet off. I remember that. And this guy didn't exist. It's a myth. But it's probably somebody cut somebody's feet off at some point. But that's it's lasted as a metaphor for rigidness and narrow-mindedness for 3,000 years, precisely because it's a good story. And the danger is, once we teach the computers to construct the stories and build these iterative feedback systems where they're going, oh, this kind of story is clicked on more than that kind of story, then you end up losing the scientific narrative of, is this actually true or not?
Yes, and also you end up
lose
where
the
every headline
humanity.
is like 6 unbelievable things about big data, and you won't believe number 3 because the data tells us that those kind of headlines work really well.
Right, but also the humanities part of the story. If you can tell a wonderful story that may not be true, and that may be a better illustration of the thing you're trying to explain than the real facts of it. That can be a useful thing to do. It can also be a dangerous thing to do. And the challenge can be, so the point of thinking scientifically is to say, can I measure this? Is this something that somebody else can measure and see the same thing? Once we've done enough of that, we can construct a story about this. But if you can't point back to that, you can't say, no, this is consistent with the world. And the problem we're doing with the very large-scale data systems is we're letting them autocorrelate, construct, and make things and try them out on people and iterate them that way, and they can't narrate how they got there at all. Well, not in any way that we can understand.
Let me ask what might be a rather naive question relating to this, but one of the things that we are constantly hearing about from vendors and from engineers who are developing these kinds of big data systems is that dealing with unstructured data is a big part of what quote-unquote big data is, which is this idea that you might have massive quantities of pictures and unstructured text and chat logs and God knows what else. And you just kind of all dump it in a Hadoop database somewhere and you index it in some way, you do Google type searches against it. So you don't have to worry about structuring it. So is that a sign that we're now getting better able to handle data in weird shapes and not have to be so procrusty about it?
Well, part of the point is, so big data is a misnomer. It's not about big data, it's about messy data. So unstructured data is right. So I prefer to talk about messy data because the point is, it's not like it used to be that there was like a few big computers and a staff of people to feed text into them, and they would do all the data organization on the way in.
Yes. Now you do it on the way out.
I've got 4 in my bag and they're gathering data all the time, whether I know about it or not, and sharing bits of it to Google and Facebook and Apple and whomever else is plugged into them. And they are getting large pools of data, which is a mess, and then they're trying to make sense of it.
But you still have to organize it to make sense of it.
So what you do with Hadoop and MapReduce is that you say, find me anything in this data that fits this Procrustean template that I'm looking for, and give me that database.
So
it's a way of generating a database from a template, but the template is still there in what you're doing. So you still have that model. It means that you're doing less forcing on the way in. You're not chopping everyone's names off when they're filling in the form, but you're only looking for things that look like names to you when you're searching through the web pages. Yes. So if you have a name that isn't English enough, or doesn't have a surname, or has an apostrophe in the wrong place, then it will not show up as a name in your data set, and the data set will be wrong.
Well, this is why I like full text search, because I'm a big Evernote user, and I just dump everything into Evernote. I could never make myself use contact managers because I couldn't stand filling out field after form.
The world's laziest nerd.
Now I just like copy and paste from emails. I throw unstructured stuff. I throw pictures into Evernote, and then all I have to do is search.
But this is what Google has done for the web. I mean, the joke for a while was the quickest way to search your address book is to post it on your website and let Google index it. because they had got good at that scale.
I am fighting a losing war against the robots. But there is no poetry in computing, the kind that we're talking about right now.
There's found poetry in computing.
Okay, if you look at the novels of Ellen Ullman, I think that is poetry about computing. But I think in what computers do, I mean, we're talking about feeding them data, and then they analyze it, and they look at all the strings, and they try to make correlations, and they try to put things in boxes where they don't fit. There's no humanity in that. There's no passion in that, and I hate it. I would rather have a computer just leave my data alone and leave it messy, leave it imperfect, I would rather have no idea how to get in touch with you, Dylan. I mean, for obvious reasons aside.
This is
and
why
have
I
to
never
work
know
it
what
out
phone number
myself.
to call you on, right? Because you refuse to be confined to the Procrustean.
I'm a free friggin' spirit, man.
Limits of a phone number.
But seriously, I strenuously object to any organization of messy data unless it's for saving lives or something. And really, it's all just being used to sell you crap you don't need. If we're being frank.
Well, yeah, that's the challenge has been, what do we do with this and how do we find useful? Google does do a bunch of fairly useful things with it. Indexing, scanning and indexing books, I find that fairly useful. Scanning and indexing web pages makes some sense sometimes. I'm looking for something else. I'm looking up Procrustes.
Extremely useful for me. Yeah, I use it constantly.
But the question is, has that lost track with the motivation that makes sense to you? Is it just being used to put you into a little demographic box and put things on your screen?
Oh, without question. Without question. They're always trying to sell things based on data. They being everybody, which is why I don't believe that Amazon is not using your data to sell things to you or anyone else.
I would never.
I think that they're taking all that messy data and collating it so that they can create types and customer profiles. And
so there is an alternative, and I think that the alternative is that fortunately there's not just one giant corporation or government that has all the data on us and has a monopoly on that data.
Well, it depends on what conspiracy theories you ascribe to.
There are many alternatives. And, I worked with a guy...
Just glossed over that, didn't you, Kevin?
Wired, who felt like the way to deal with invasions of his privacy or companies trying to market data to him was just to put his information on as many services, as many online sites as possible, because he figured if he just put it up there on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, then it would no longer be unique. It would be just everywhere. So the more widespread the information is, the less valuable it is.
I've done that. Everybody had my information. It was all very, very public. It stripped me of my personhood. Everyone just thought I was this icon of myself. I was all the things that I liked, and I was all the things that I followed. And I was no longer a real person. I had to take a huge step back, delete a lot of that information, reclaim a little privacy, and realize, I don't fit in that box. I like things that are atypical for somebody with my interests. And that's okay.
That's great. I feel like it's important to realize that you have control over your technology and you can make decisions.
But when your technology, when Amazon and Facebook and Google and Apple want to put you in that box and they market things to you inside that box, you start to take the shape of the box.
Yes.
And that's why big data is dangerous. Very dangerous.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I'm really glad that you joined us today to talk about all these things.
Well, that's so my indie web is the attempt to try and take that back and make computers ours again. And Indie Web Camp is this weekend in Portland and New York.
Ooh, we love Portland.
Where can people find out more information?
IndieWebCamp.com.
All right.
That's indie with an IE.
Yes.
Like indie bands.
Exactly.
It's exciting.
Camp.com. Awesome. Well, Kevin Marks, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely.
And I hope we get to go to your cocktail party someday.
I enjoyed that.
You say that with a strained smile.
No,
We're never getting in, Dylan.
Well, I was just thinking,
The likes of us, never.
You have to come down to San Jose, that's the challenge.
Oh, yeah, we're never. Well, thank you, folks, so much for listening to our ramblings once again. This has been another riveting episode of What to Think.